So I've been responding day by day to what I'm seeing in both the Trump administration in terms of some possible relief for those being negatively impacted by COVID-19, and also hoping for more out of Congress. But both Democrats and Republicans have given me a lot to be frustrated with. But for more of this conversation, I'm very excited to get the opinions of Ken Klippenstein, who joins us once again. Ken, thank you for joining us.
Hey, quite happy to give you my opinions.
Always happy to have you here. Very much appreciate your writing recently at The Nation. I mean, look, you've been watching this, and you're in D.C., by the way, so it's a very different experience than me. I'm over cloistered in L.A. What's it like out there?
It's a ghost town. As you can imagine, there are a lot of people that work for either federal government or associated agencies. So I think that there probably a lot more proximity to the sort of information of what exactly is going on and how serious this is. And I just came back from Florida where I was doing a story for The Nation, and the attitude seemed quite different. It does seem as though there is anxiety commensurate with the threat here, far more so than what I saw in Florida. So yeah, let the record show that whatever the officials are saying, the way they're living, at least as I can tell, and I live on Capitol Hill, they seem very scared, and they do appear to be practicing social distancing and those sorts of things quite.
Yeah, especially I'm sure since we found out, I think it was yesterday, that two members of Congress have now tested positive for coronavirus, and it reminds me a little bit of Fox News. They seem to have finally gotten their stuff together on this, but there was a period where they had been totally denying that it was anything to then still denying that it was anything, but we found out that they were being advised internally that they were going to be cutting non-essential personnel and those sorts of things. So it's like there's a difference between what they say and what they do. So in terms of the response, you've been seeing, I'm sure, these daily briefings by the president, and what do you think about so far his ability or willingness to take this seriously?
Well, there seems to be one transcendent concern here, and that is the health of the stock market and finance and the wealthy generally. And I don't think that you have to speculate very far to see that that's why he wanted really not to say that there was a problem for as long as he did, because it's very clear that the stock market took a dip after that. That this is going to have an effect on consumption and consumer demand. So to me, that is the proper frame of the story here: is that the government and the Trump administration decided to put Wall Street ahead of everyone else, basically, and dithered for weeks and weeks, and only responded at a point in time in which it now appears as though it's going to be too late to shut down Red virus. And again, whatever they say, I know. I mean, I know quite a few Republican Congress people that are in private asking for these tests and getting them, and taking this as seriously as any one of us or anybody on the left or anything like that. So it is pretty disheartening to see, concern for really your fellow people,
Hmm.
not take precedence over concern about economic.
Yeah. And so there's been a lot of concern about, obviously, the Republicans I'm going to have a little bit less faith in. Theoretically, we should be able to expect that the Democratic Party would take this more seriously. But there's, Nancy Pelosi is like talking so much about how we need means testing for this like version of UBI that we might put out. But people are, I think, rightfully worried that that could involve a longer delay when people need help right now. Do you think that the Democratic Party understands potentially not only how they're delaying might hurt the actual, like, substantively help people who need help, but also is providing this opportunity for the Republican Party, which in Donald Trump has completely bungled this thing for literally months, to step in and seem like leaders on this issue?
Yeah, it's scary. Um, Anyone familiar with history knows what happens when you take the sort of nationalism that you would associate with the Trump administration and marry that with elements of socialism. Not good things down that road, because these sort of left wing policies are going to put money in people's pockets. That's going to be extraordinarily popular, regardless of whatever the sort of cultural someone like Trump may be. So I think that's extraordinarily dangerous, and something I really hope that the Democrats are able to um, sort of take the mantle on, because these are more reflective of their constituency. I mean, they're supposed to represent organized labor. They're supposed to represent workers, just on a constituent basis, manner different from Republican Party. So yes, that's very concerning because he does that, and I think you're going to see his numbers dramatically change. And as you point out, means testing things. Maybe you make it so that some relatively privileged people don't get as much as someone else, but the effect of that is it's a headache and a bunch of paperwork and stuff. This is an emergency. I don't think that elected officials should be worrying about if people are going to cross their T's and dot their I's properly. We should just get stuff to people. Who cares if some gets to people that don't necessarily need it? Just as long, I'd rather give stuff to people who don't need it too much and make sure that everyone has something rather than potentially just to make sure that someone who doesn't get it.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, I don't know in terms of how far your contacts go into the Dem leadership right now, but do they seem to be getting that they're fumbling this thing, or do they think that so far their response has been like acceptable or popular?
My impression is that this is the same sorts of stuff they've always been saying. This has been the debate on the part of the Democratic establishment around Medicare for all. The line, I don't think rich people should have free healthcare. So this is like, I don't think this goes beyond how egregious they're sort of hand wringing over some imaginary billionaire going to a public hospital or something. This isn't out of character for them. However, it's the context in which this is happening that makes it really stark, which is a lot of people could die if they don't respond to this rapidly. Noticing how sort of foolish I think a lot of attitudes are in the face of crisis, where maybe people just kind of zone it out and just kind of speak when you're talking about it in a more in a sense abstracted from any sort of immediate crisis.
Yeah. What other thing? Maybe this is random. What do you think about the sort of apparent rise of Andrew Yang to like the center of the political conversation, that now that pretty much everyone's like, well, yeah, obviously UBI. We can talk about like what form it's going to come in, how long it's going to last, but obviously we're going to do UBI.
Yeah, it sort of exposes as a lie this idea that we were never able, or even anyone, because we should remember lack of healthcare access is something that affects shocking wealthy segments of society as well, or affluent segments of society. So the government can always just create stimulus, help people. What's different now is that the situation is so dire that they're under pressure to do so because the economy is going to implode if they don't. But as for UBI, I wish there was a little bit more nuanced talk about it, because there's UBI as a concept, and then there's Yang's particular version of it, which would contain within it cuts to social safety net and social programs that I think make it not worth it. But I think the devil's in the details here. The question is not, do we do UBI? The question is, what kind of UBI are we going to pursue? Are we going to leave our social programs intact, or is it going to be some sort of grand bargain of the sort that Obama tried to pass, where in exchange for some assistance, you're giving up a lot of the sort of victories of the labor movement over the last several decades?
Yeah, so far I haven't heard any references to that part of it. Mostly it's about figuring out how long it's going to last, whether it's for individuals, how much it's going to be, whether kids get something. But I guess we'll see. He had tweeted yesterday that his phone was blowing up, that everyone was calling to talk to him about UBI. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I hope that people treat him as a sort of I wish he got credited as sort of getting the idea out as a meme and not necessarily on the specifics of it, because I don't think his particular approach to it was great. But it should people think about this as a sort of possibility now.
Yeah. Well, as always, Ken, thank you so much. You're right there in the thick of it. Keep yourself safe, but we appreciate you joining the show, and hopefully you can continue to do that as the lockdown continues.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.